I bet you're a tea drinker. And if not, I bet you've at least had some in your life at some point. Because did you know that 1.42 million pounds of tea are consumed every single day here in the United States alone? Hi, welcome to Horticulture Geek. I'm Ray, and we're out in the garden today to talk about, you guessed it, because you just saw that clip, we're talking about tea. Where does it come from? How do you grow it? How do you use it to make tea that you can drink? So we're going to talk about all that and a lot more, so sit back and we'll get right into it. Well, I'm glad you're still here with me because we're talking about tea. And if you didn't know it, tea is a plant that you can grow right in your yard. I have one here. It is from the Camellia sinensis plant. Now, this is not to be confused with a flowering camellia that you would put in your yard to have beautiful flowers. Camellia sinensis is just one of 250 different varieties of camellias that are on the market that are known. Camellia sinensis is considered a small leaf camellia plant, and it does put out flowers, but those flowers are usually very small and inconsequential, so it is not grown for its flower usage. It is grown for tea, and it is the only variety of camellia that is used for tea. None of the other varieties will do it. So if you've got a Camellia japonica or one of those others, I'm sorry, you don't have a tea plant. Camellia sinensis is the way to go. Here is the card. I'm going to pull that up here so you can see it. So small leaf tea, Camellia sinensis. And here is kind of the growing recommendations on the back. Camellia sinensis is pretty easy to grow. If you're in zones 5 through 8, you can pop it right in the ground and it should do fine for you. It prefers a shady spot with minimal water. Once a Camellia sinensis plant gets established, it pretty much likes to be left alone. It doesn't require a bunch of fertilizers. It doesn't require a bunch of water unless you're in a drought situation and you need to give it something to drink. Here's mine that I'm going to be planting. And I'm going to kind of get in here close so you can see the leaves. So that's what the leaves look like. So once you've got a Camellia sinensis, you've tracked one down, you've put it in your garden, you found a nice shady spot where the plant will get lots of water but not set in water or get overwatered. How do you actually get tea from it? And what types of tea can you get from it? Well, the answer to that is all tea comes from this one plant. It doesn't matter if it's green tea, black tea, oolong tea, any other kind of tea. All teas come from this plant. The taste of teas vary by the way you prepare it, how much of the plant and what parts of the plant you harvest, and the climate in which the plant is grown, because climate will affect the flavor of the leaves. So me here in zone 7A in central Arkansas, when I harvest and make a pot of black tea for my Camellia sinensis, it will taste different from somebody who's in a more northern, say zone 5 climate, because that plant is in a little bit of a cooler temperature. The leaves will develop a little differently and there will be a slight flavor difference. How do you pick the camellia leaves? Well, no matter where you're at in the world, wherever you're planting it at, the picking and the harvesting of the leaves is the same. You want to pick fresh, young leaves. Right when they are coming out freshly blooming. Now here's the trick with the Camellia sinensis, is that when you prune a camellia, it encourages that plant to flush out. And a good rule of thumb is for every cut that you make on the plant, you will get 3 new stems off of that cut. So, let me bring this in here so you can see. So if I was to come in and cut this plant right here at this node, there's a little growth node there. I don't know if you can see it. Growth node. If I was to cut the plant right there, it would cause this plant to bush out 3 new lateral branches from that cut mark. which means that you can potentially, in the growing season, when it is fully going and it's flushing out new growth, you can potentially harvest fresh tea leaves every 2 to 3 weeks. You can be getting a new batch of tea to come inside and make your tea with. So you just simply go in and pick the tea off of the plant. You just come right in and pull these leaves off just like that to harvest the tea leaves. That's all it is to it. Now, general maintenance of the plant, a Camellia sinensis does want to get rather large, just like most camellias do. If you were just to put it out in the wild and never prune it and let it go, they can get up to 12 to 15 feet tall, and they can get 4, 5, 6 feet wide if you let them. This plant does not need to get that big in order for it to grow successfully and to thrive. In most commercial cultivation facilities, it's only allowed to grow about 6 feet tall and about 3 to 3.5 feet wide so that it is easily harvested. You want to keep your Camellia sinensis pruned to a height and width where you can stand there and easily pluck off all the fresh leaves. If you let it get too tall or too wide around, it may not be easy to harvest your tea leaves. The whole point is to get your tea leaves, so you want to keep it in a comfortable height and size range to make it easy for you to prune. So the way you prune yours, or the height and the width, may be different than I prune mine. It's okay. Just do what is best for you in your garden for your pruning standards. All right, so we've figured out how to prune it. We know that all we have to do is pick fresh leaves. What do we do with it at that point? Well, here's what you're gonna do. And I'm going to put these directions in the comments below, but I'm gonna quickly run you through the recipe to get your 3 major types of tea, okay? So, and like I said, I will put this down in the description below. But for green tea, let's talk about green tea. You're gonna pluck the newly grown leaves and leaf buds early in the spring, so you can actually get the buds. So as those leaf buds are coming out, you wanna get those too. Dry the leaves with a napkin or cloth and let the leaves dry in the shade for about 3 to 4 hours in the heat of the day, okay? So it's nice warm day, you've gone out, picked your leaves, pat them dry, make sure there's no moisture on them, and just pick a nice shady spot where you can lay them out flat to dry. After 3 to 4 hours on a nice hot day, when you've let them dry, you're going to dice the leaves with a kitchen knife so they look more like you're used to seeing when you prepare teas. You can just kind of chop them up. You're going to then steam the leaves for about a minute, or for a different flavor roast, you can roast them in the skillet for 2 minutes, okay? So either just dice them up, steam them for a minute, or you can put them in a pan and roast them for a little bit different flavor for about 2 minutes. Then, once you've done that, you can spread the leaves out on a pan and dry in the oven at 250 degrees for 20 minutes. And that is Fahrenheit, 250 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 minutes, okay? So I've picked it, I've let it dry outside, I've diced it up a little bit, I've then steamed it for a minute or pan-seared it for 2 minutes, and now I've laid it all out again on a sheet, cookie sheet or a tray, and I've put it in the oven at 250 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 minutes. I'm basically dehydrating it again. Once that's done, your tea is ready to go. So you can either store the leaves for later in an airtight container, or you can make a cup and drink your tea. And how do you make a cup? You either use a tea diffuser, or you can use like a coffee filter. If you don't have a tea diffuser, get a coffee filter, put you a tablespoon or 2 of the tea leaves in there, tie it up, and put that in your pot of hot water to make your tea. All right, I had to shift a little bit. The sun was getting in my eye. So now let's talk about black tea. You're going to, again, pick the youngest leaves and leaf buds. You're going to roll the leaves between your hands, or you can do it with a rolling pin, and you're going to crush them until the leaves start to darken and turn red. So you want to just either rub them or roll them until they get dark and red. Then, once that is done, you can spread them out on a tray and leave them in a cool location for 2 to 3 days. 2 to 3 days. Once that step is complete, you can spread the leaves on a baking pan or a cookie sheet and dry them in the oven at 250 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 minutes. Once you're done there, they're ready to store in an airtight container or use for tea. So now let's talk about oolong tea. Again, we're going to pluck those fresh leaves and leaf buds. We're going to spread them out on a towel in the heat of the sun. So remember, with green tea, we left them in the shade. With oolong, we're going to leave them in the sun and let them dry for 45 minutes in the sun. Then we're going to bring our leaves inside and we're going to let them sit at room temperature for about 4 hours, mixing the leaves around every hour. So 4 hours on the hour, you're going to mix your leaves around. Then you're going to turn your oven on to 250 degrees Fahrenheit. Once the edges of your leaves have started to turn red, then you can put them in your oven at that 250 degrees Fahrenheit for the same 20 minutes. And once they've come out of the oven, it's ready to make oolong tea. So you can see that just by the way we dry them, prepare them, and move them around and dehydrate them, we're getting different flavor profiles from the leaves to create our different teas. The last thing I wanted to tell y'all today is that if you are a good tea drinker or you've drinking a lot of teas from around the world, you may have noticed that teas made here in America, Lipton, Louisiana, and there's some other varieties, have a very different taste than teas that are produced in other parts of the world. Why is that? What's going on there? Well, here is the reason. And there's a puppy. Here's the reason for that. American tea producers use mechanical harvesters just like any other agricultural crop here in the United States. So they have these harvesters that go down the rows of plants with blades and trimmers, and they lop off everything in the path of the blade. And that includes the branches, twigs, and stems. So when those branches, twigs, and stems get incorporated into the leaves and leaf buds and dehydrated out and blended in, those give American teas a little bit of a bitter but different taste. And so that's why American teas taste different than other teas from around the world. Because traditionally you hand pick the leaves and the leaf buds only. And that's how it is still done in the vast majority of the world. America is really the oddball here, which uses the mechanical devices and allows the stems and twigs to stay in the mix. So if you're doing this at home, I would recommend doing it the traditional way, hand picking your leaves and your leaf buds. But if the tea's just not coming out the way you like because you're so accustomed to American tea, then you can try actually cutting off some of your stems and twigs as well, and just dehydrating those with your leaves the same way you would just without. And that may give you the desired taste that you're looking for. And with that, I think we've concluded all the information that I wanted to share with you guys today. I did want to mention another YouTube channel, which is the Green Dream Project, because they just put out a video about the tea plant as well, Camellia sinensis, the other day. And I'm going to link that video right over here. So the Green Dream Project did a great job of walking through the history of tea, how it was discovered, how it was developed, and some fun, interesting facts about the tea plant. And instead of recreating the wheel, I'm just gonna direct you over there and let them tell you all that information if you wanna see it. But for today, I hope you've enjoyed this information. I hope you've enjoyed learning how you can grow your own tea at your own home, your own garden, or your own homestead. And if you did, well, I would encourage you to give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I would encourage you to do that as well. I would love to have you along for this journey. And you can also join us on Facebook under the same name, Horticulture Geek. But until next time, from my garden to yours, I wish you all the happiest of gardening.